Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Agile Leader Series Masterclass on clear communication. I am Lindon Crow, a dad, a husband, a dog dad, a trail runner, a business owner, president of Productive Learning. So who is Productive Learning? Yeah, trainer. There you go, right? Trainer. So who is Productive Learning? I was thinking about this as I was writing this. I think a better question is, why is productive learning here? Not who are we, but why are we here? Why is because I listen to some 30 odd business owners, dozens of their employees, full-time moms and dads, and just good dudes and good gals going through life. And I hear them suffering unnecessarily. And that hurts my heart. Simultaneously, I see that there are ways that they can show up at their work, with their coworkers, with their husband, with their wife, with their sons and daughters, that is not outside of the realm of possibility. It's just merely outside of their current perspective that will let them live that happier or more fulfilled or overall more successful life. And I want to help them with that. I want to end the unnecessary suffering of 100,000 people. And when I say what I mean is Productive Learning and my team of extraordinary coaches and trainers. Each one of us believes that the human potential is something worth striving and working for. We believe that greatness can be achieved at an individual level. And then when you put that greatness together with others, in relationships, in teams, in businesses, extraordinary results happen. So what these Masterclass series are designed to do is give you free access to exercises you can do that will support you and others you invite to learn about those natural but limited perspectives that you take on that keep you feeling stuck in certain areas of your life. The last masterclass on dynamic dialogues focused on finding mutual respect, and more specifically, maintaining respect for yourself when in relationship with people with different opinions. If you haven't seen it, check it out, pass it on to others. It's a great topic. Everyone needs a little bit of that. This masterclass is going to be on the conversations that we'd really rather avoid. You know the ones, right? These are the ones that you just can't seem to find the right time to bring it up, or you might as well not have it because you know how it's going to go. If you're married or have an intimate partner, I know you've had those. If you're a leader in an organization, I'm sure you find a way out of it by getting busy or coming up with some logical excuse like they need to figure it out. This is good for their learning, or I need to go do XYZ. Whatever those conversations are, that's what I want to work on today. So this is where I want our conversation to go. I want us to figure out, and where I want us to begin is, what are the conversations you are not having? That's the conversation. I'm starting off jumping into the deep end, right? And the pool's cold and everyone hasn't even dipped their toes in. But hey, you want value, buckle up. Here we go. We ain't putzing around. Question to you all. Think of the conversation that you are avoiding right now. One that you are not having. It's likely, if something's coming up, it's been on your mind to bring it up to your coworker or your boss or your employee, maybe to a client, maybe to your wife or husband, maybe to your daughter or your son. The one that I was working on was my bitchy neighbor. I'm sorry, just my neighbor. I'll take out the adjective. The more challenging and or the one you really don't want to have, the better. Maybe this is a long-standing conversation or comment that you want to make, but you just haven't done it. Now, if you are feeling clean and good and don't have one, that's fine. I want you to look back on the last conversation you avoided. That will still work. So if there's a conversation that you are avoiding or the last conversation that you noticed that you avoided, and it could be small or subtle, could be huge. I want you to type it into the chat. Who is that person? Meaning, what's the relationship to you? Wife, daughter, manager, direct report. If you're jotting your own notes down, jot those notes down, but keep them, also put them into conversation if you are open to that. And then as you think about that, what's the topic as well? Is it about money, like a raise? Do you need to let them know that they're not performing? Is it something that you want from them? Is it that you want attention? Do you want sex? Or is it something that you want them to stop doing because it pisses you off and irks you and takes you off your game? Okay. Think about it. What's the person? What's the relationship? What's the topic? Everybody got some? Tanya, good. Al, client, great. Lucy, brother. Nice. AKA my father-in-law. Julianne, your son, great. Love it. Love it. Trina, good. I hope I'm not saying these things while you guys while you're on speaker, right, at work, because that would be awkward. But hey, you know, way to force a conversation. Okay, next part. Because you are not having it, what are you not getting that you want? Meaning, if you brought it up and all went according to plan, ideally, what would you get or have? It may be the answer, your topic, but you may see it tied to something bigger. Either way, get it in your mind that you have it. What is that? What's the outcome that you're hoping for? Write that in the chat. Good, beautiful. You guys are going. Project completion, love it. Closure. Oh, interesting. Oh, more time. I like that. More time with them. Clarity of our relationship. Okay, now adding to that. So what is it that you would get? Now, if you haven't written it already, because I think some of you may have, what I want you to add to it is emotionally, what would that feel like? If you had the flexibility, if you had the better work environment, if you had more time with your brother, if you had a deeper connection, emotionally now, that was the thing or the event or the subject matter, emotionally, what would that get you? Calm, peace, joy? Would you feel powerful? Calm and energy. Ooh, I like that combination of that, Carol. All of the above. Come on, Norma. You don't get to just say, I want their answers. A sense of credibility and respect. Steve, yeah, cool. Okay. Joy, safety, Trini. Okay, I got you. Santa, proud and peace. Good. Good. What would the emotional win be? In your imagination, you can see that. You could feel that. Yeah. Can I get a thumbs up if you put that up? Yep. 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 Cool. Cool. Christian nods. I'll take a nod. Looking like Steve Jobs with your black shirt on today. All right. Now you've got that. To contrast, because you are not having it, where emotionally is that leaving you? Meaning, what is the kind of suffering you are experiencing as you avoid the conversation? Is it anxiety? Are you ruminating? Anger, disconnected. Yeah. I know many times I feel unfocused. I think I can do something, yet this is on my mind. And so I feel scattered, unfocused, frustrated, disconnected. Yeah, Steve, perfect. Some people are on more on the angry side, right? They feel critical, skeptical, betrayed. They start to lose all feelings of trust, connection. Sue, not supported, stifled. Nice. Nice. Okay. Okay. Now you should have a person or people. You should have a topic. You should have the emotions of the win, right? If it all went according to plan, and the current emotions that you have as you are avoiding the conversation, or if you're reflecting on the past, ones that you previously had. Yep, everybody got that? Nods of heads, thumbs ups, any kind of emotion reactions? Cool, right on. So just to reflect on that for a moment. You now have all these things. Sometimes in my coaching with executives, just getting a person to be clear on where they are can have a profound effect on their willingness to go do the hard thing. Just gaining clarity on who, on what, on why, and the current state leaves many of at least my veteran clients ready to go execute and move forward. I believe one of the reasons that our clients start to move forward on their goals when they can just get at least that level of clarity, which many times is very hard to do when you're just trying to do self-assessment. You need a little bit of somebody to counter and ask and poke and prod. But I think it becomes easier as you do more work on yourself because you grow an intolerance for those emotional states that you identified that happen when you're avoiding the hard thing. Those become just such bad tastes in your mouth. You don't want to associate your life or days, let alone hours or minutes, in staying in that state because you've tasted what it can be like to go and live more freely, more with peace, with joy, with power, all those wonderful things that you talked about. So it becomes intolerable. A funny story, little tangent here. About 15 years ago, when I started productive learning, I used to avoid all kinds of conflict. I didn't like to communicate with people that I thought would be upset. I'm sure anybody raise a hand similar to that. Yeah. Okay. Good. Great. Thank you, Katya. Great. Thank you, Tana. Great. Okay. I was in our trainer's training course, and there was an agreement that I made with myself that the moment I realized that I was withholding a communication from someone, I had to communicate. I had to act. Because my life up until then was I could see and observe all kinds of different relationship dynamics. I could see what I was or wasn't doing and wasn't communicating, and then I would just swallow it. And the weight of that growing up just, I feel like, mounted. And then I came into productive learning. I started our trainer's training course, and I said, fuck it, I'm not going to do that anymore. That ain't me. I don't like it. I don't believe that that's how life should be. I'm going to make a shift. So I made this agreement with myself. And for the most part, I was fine. I started to make communications just right on the spot until it came to my hairdresser. This gal just wouldn't call me back, which was annoying, but it eventually got resolved. And I remember I set an appointment. Ellen, I don't know if you remember this conversation that I brought up in our trainer's training, because Ellen Krogh was in that trainer's training with me. But I set an appointment with her 2 weeks out, eventually having to chase her down and her calling me back. And then 1 week out, she texts me and says my appointment is canceled and I'll have to reschedule. And this is after I've already chased her. So my mind, and mind you, I'm getting a basic male haircut for 20 bucks. I mean, it takes all of 20 minutes. This is not like a big deal, at least in my mind. So now I'm getting pissed and I'm starting to wonder, why am I fighting to give her my service and my money? And I realize that I'm withholding a communication of something like, I'm not happy with your service. I don't believe I should be fighting for your service and being denied after we make an agreement. You're breaking agreements. And so I'm leaving, right? And that's the communication I realize that I am not making, because I also see and I also recognize that there is a much easier option of just moving on, which, believe me, I wanted to do. And I'm sure some of you have done, maybe even with your past hairdressers, like you just don't like them, you just move on, right? There's no more communication. But because of these damn workshops and living within my values, right? Not running away from these emotions, I said, screw it, here I go. So I walk into her studio, and this is our old office in Capistrano Beach. And so her studio is literally the floor below us. And I waited till she was available and not in front of clients. I didn't want to make a big scene. And I let her know that this wasn't okay and I was moving on. And she both felt, you could tell that she felt sad and she felt an incredible amount of compassion for me, because she could see that I was trembling. I was shaking making this communication. And she told me how thoughtful it was, because, and courageous that it was, because most people just leave, right? Especially hairdressers, they just get ghosted. They just leave if the person or the client doesn't like them. And there's not a lot of closure. And so she all of a sudden opens up that there is so much lack of closure in my life because of the profession that I do. And then she didn't open it up to the rest of her life, but that's what she talked about. Only I'm assuming, and between you and I bet it was, in the rest of her life, a lot of lack of closure in her relationships. And the fact that I came back to her and acknowledged that it wasn't a good fit had her feel a sense of closure of what she didn't have a lot of. And we acknowledged that it wasn't a good fit for whatever reasons, and we separated. And that was that. Now, take from that what you will, but my point here is that what I hated in that whole process was the 4 days that I spun out. I spun out over this communication that I was forcing myself to have because I wanted to live to some higher standard, right? Over my workshop and my coaching sessions and my growth, I've become so intolerant of that spinning out feeling that I will push forward in conversations way faster. And therefore, the suffering that I was feeling, which I believe is unnecessary suffering, there is not growth in that suffering. That's what I mean when I say unnecessary suffering. The suffering that I do feel these days is a fleeting whisper. It just reminds me of how courage is one of my values. Because if I feel it, I make the communication, I send the email, I send the text, whatever it is, to at least move myself forward. Because that sense of suffering is just a hole in the ground that I feel stuck in. But moving on it, boy, I feel a lot of what you guys wrote up in this: empowered, peace, calm, all of that. And like I said, courage is one of my values. So I feel a lot of courage, even when it's quick and fast decisions and choices. So that's what I want for all of you. I want your version of a quiet memory of that suffering you used to have, not to be living in it every time those topics or that person and a challenging conversation come up in your life. Okay. So that was a little tangential story. So let me bring you back and regroup with a little background information. The evolution of our brain has made our species exceptional at predicting the future. Most species can't think beyond the next meal, let alone the next moment. But for humans, so much of our basic needs are met, water, food, shelter, that our brains gained the ability to grow and evolve and gave gray matter and caloric energy to longer term and more complex thinking and musings. Like, if I plant this thing in the ground today, in spring, I'm going to have a bunch of food. Fast forward a few 100,000 years, and now we think, if I tell Cassie I want to go to boys' dinner tonight, then I shouldn't ask about working out in the morning and take Grace, because then she'll not have her alone time, and date night Friday night will be lousy because she'll feel like I don't give her enough, and just on and on and on and on, and whatever bullshit assumption upon assumption upon assumption, right? My version, you guys got your own versions. You ruminate. Anybody seen Inside Out 2 yet? I mean, this is anxiety, figuring it out. If you haven't seen it, go do yourself an educational favor. Thank you, Pixar, for figuring out how to make emotions fun and exciting to learn about, okay? Our minds just ruminate now on the future possibilities. It's just one assumption to the next, to the next. Now, with this wonderfully evolved brain of ours, we have the amazing experience of having thoughts, which, right, are just electrical impulses, and emotions, which are just a chemical cocktail coming from our neurotransmitter of electrical impulses, happening essentially simultaneously. So with every thought, our brain also squirts out some chemicals, and that gives us the emotions and the thought combination. What's fascinating is that there are thoughts we have not just about the present. Like we stated, we can predict the future, which means that the thoughts we have now about the future give us emotions when? Now or in the future?
No.
Now, right? We have the thought now, which means we have the feelings now, even if the thought is about something in the future, tomorrow, let alone next year. We are predicting the future, meaning we are assuming and we are feeling what we foresee ourselves to feel at that time. We're having the emotion now about a thought we will have and the experience we will have in the future, right? Stick with me here. Tie this back to the conversations you are avoiding. In the end, we are constantly seeking to get or to avoid certain mental and emotional states. Our brain-body system learns what mental and emotional states are good and what are bad, what ups our odds of survival or lowers our odds of survival. And we learn that through early experiences. So let's go to your conversation. Write down in the chat, on your paper, wherever you are, what do you predict the really uncomfortable feeling you will feel when you have this conversation? What will the upsetting feeling be from the other person? Blamed. Perfect. Katya, yes. What's the uncomfortable feeling you think you'll feel when you tell them what's been on your mind? This is different, likely different from your current emotion that you're doing in avoidance. This is when you decide to tell your wife X, or you tell your husband Y, or your coworker Z. Write out that emotion in the chat box. What do you got? Judged, defensive. Ooh. Write down what you predict the really uncomfortable feeling you will feel when you have this conversation. What will the upsetting feeling be? You may even want to jot down the upsetting or uncomfortable feeling that the other person, the recipient of the communication, will feel. Because that was what mine was about the hairdresser. I was worried about her upset and then how I would feel about her upset. Okay, everybody got something? Thumbs up?
Mm-hmm.
Cool, cool. Okay. You ready for the big takeaway? Takeaway number one. This is where your work lies. Other people can have your conversation because they don't have your discomfort with this emotion. It is this emotion that you are avoiding, not the conversation. The conversation is what you think will bring this emotion about. Other people can have this conversation because they aren't afraid or aren't upset or scared of having certain emotion, the emotion that you're thinking. They likely avoid different emotions. That's fine. That's them. This one is yours. And for some reason, but the emotion that you just wrote out, that is where your growth in your most challenging conversations will come from. The goal I have for you, or the challenge I have for you, is to develop a new relationship with that emotion. Right now, that mind that predicts the future and the emotions that are coming from that thought, you have a relationship with that emotion. And what that relationship is to have you avoid. That's the relationship you have with the emotion. You may be avoiding a feeling of aggression or hostility like mine, or sadness or grief or disappointment, shock, boredom. I don't know. If you change your relationship with that emotion, you will change your ability to have whatever conversation that you want to have. It's not the topic, it's the emotion. Now, the beginning of your work, we can start here, but really, you need to dive into our workshop called Path of Dialogue that starts in October. The depth you're going to get here in this is going to feel like child's play as to what you get in the Path of Dialogue, but we will start here, okay? Your relationship with that emotion came from somewhere. It was learned. We know this because other people don't have this relationship with that emotion. They can walk straight through this. That doesn't scare them. They go forward with it, right? This is all the people that you were thinking about when we started this masterclass. Who are those people that can navigate tough conversations or challenging topics? They don't have that relationship, which means that they learned something different in regards to the relationship dynamic with the emotion. You learned this somewhere. Your next question here. I want you to think about your earliest experiences of those emotions. All those ones that you said: judged, exposed, ashamed, shocked, defensive, fear. Specifically, what happened when you felt that emotion as a kid? How did your parents deal with you when you had that emotion? Were you shunned, told to go away to your room and come back when you felt something different? Were you ridiculed? Were you ignored? What happened when you felt that as a kid?
That's too much.
Write that out. Reflect back. Adding a little bit more context to this. How did your dad handle that emotion when you had it? And how did your mom handle that emotion with you when you had it? Yeah, got angry.
They didn't really know.
They didn't know what to do,
They
right?
didn't know what to do.
Some people, some understandably and naturally, some parents, us parents, don't know what to do with our kids when they have certain emotions.
Yeah.
Mine didn't, mine were okay with happiness and were okay with the whole spectrum of sadness. But with anger, nope. Let's figure that out. Let's move fast, move beyond that. Let's not be angry. It was not okay. Another question you can do is, you learned it also by watching and
People,
seeing other people. So how did your dad deal with himself when he had that emotion? How did your mom have that emotion? And what was it like for you to watch your typically two, parental units, typically mom and dad, could have been grandma, grandpa, or whomever else. How did you feel as you watched them have those emotions? What was that like? How was that for you? Okay. I want to do some sharing. What I want to hear is, what's the emotional state that you're avoiding? And where or with who did you learn that those emotions were not okay, bad, scary, ones to avoid? I want to get a show of hands. Either raise your real hand or raise your Zoom hand. Al, what do you got? I want to get a bunch of people. I just want to hear.
Yeah, it was just when I saw how worried my mother was, I was 11. Uh, that's when I started really experiencing fear.
Got it. Got it. Perfect. Great. Where else? More people. What's the emotion that you're avoiding? And where did you learn that avoidance from? What was the early experience?
I'm trying to avoid rejection, and it's from being bullied as a kid and not being liked. Like I can't, like I don't want to say something that's going to make somebody not like me.
Perfect. Great, Katya. Thank you. Christian, were you unmuting?
Yeah, just yeah, being scared of other people's reaction when they're like my father would be violent and explosive, being ashamed of having that emotion, like being called out, like okay, yeah, why would you be scared, kind of a thing.
Yes. Perfect. Perfect. Yep. And you, I can tell there's so much more story, right, to that. You can pull back all those memories. Yeah. Hilton, what do you got?
Yeah, so just to be the same in business as you are in a personal relationship and have the same emotion. And as I got older, while I was younger, I thought that is a great trait to have that emotion as you are. So you're true to yourself personally, you're true to yourself in business. And it was a mistake for me to listen to that.
Interesting. Hilton, have you ever read the Celestine Prophecies?
No.
Oh.
Put that in the
In the
chat.
very end of that book, they just become so enlightened that they turn into effervescent air. And I'm looking at you must be on a beach just effervescently floating away because I can't even see you. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's amazing. Exactly. I'm hiding behind the tree.
Nice. I love it. Hilton, thank you for sharing. What else? Who else has got something? Oh, Peggy, hit me.
I had two things. One was, you want to be liked and be included, that my mom just generally taught us. The other one is my big emotions weren't okay. I'll give you something to cry about. So there was punishment behind it. But I loved how you brought in, well, what did it look like?
Yeah.
My parents didn't argue in front of us, but I heard a couple when I was a kid in my room, really, really scared because I couldn't see, I couldn't feel, I just heard all that.
Yep.
And so that huge intense fear of that noise.
Beautiful. Good. Peggy, thank you. Who else? One or two more. Wendy.
I felt it. I can't quite put it into words because disappointment was what it was, and I'm not coming up with an exact. It just seemed pervasive when I was a child that there was a lot of disappointment, and I can't think why, because we had an okay life. I didn't have a bad life, so I'm going to have to ruminate about that for a while because
Yeah. I think that's a great point. And let me actually talk about that for a moment, because I think there'll be other people that'll feel the same way. Those of you that know me and know productive learning and know my dad specifically, you could probably assume he led himself as a father, as a dad, with a lot of emotional intelligence, right?
Right.
I had a great life. My mom was also an elementary school teacher, so she knew how to deal with kids and their emotions and how to teach and educate. So I grew up, middle class, middle upper class, Southern California. Just life is pretty easy. That doesn't mean that they didn't know how to deal with certain emotions, that they didn't know how to process some of their own upsetting or uncomfortable emotions. And that, as a little kid, learning how to deal with what are all novel and new emotional states, I am learning from the two main sources of education on how to deal with anger, sadness, fear, all of these different things. Anger, I would say, is my parents, their least capable emotion of dealing with in a healthy way. They do it by mostly avoiding. It's a great alternative to going combative and fighting, I would say. But I also then look at when I'm thinking that there may be anger or upset from somebody else, I then learn avoid. It doesn't mean that I didn't grow up in a great neighborhood and a great community and had food on the table and whatnot, but I've now just learned innocently Just like 1 and 1 equals 2, well, anger equals avoid. It's just a part of the experience growing up. We just don't give time and attention in schools and at home and parenting of typically what to do with certain emotions. It's just a generational pass down. What we're doing here is let's talk about how we relate to certain emotions because they are inhibiting us from having conversations that will get us peace, courage, happiness, fulfillment, joy, blah, 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 success, simply because we haven't learned a healthier version of dealing with certain emotions. I've learned through most of my stuff of dealing with upset and anger, hostility, all that kind of stuff through the work with productive learning and pushing myself to say, I have to make the conversation happen, right? That was my hairdresser story. So think about that. Like you said, you're going to go think about it. Fantastic. Don't think, oh, we didn't have stuff. I didn't have toys. I didn't have food. I didn't have my mom and dad come home every day. That's not the conversation. The conversation is, what's the emotion that I'm avoiding having? And what were the dynamics around that? What did I learn from mom and dad as to how to deal or not deal with that? Everybody get that? Thumbs up? Makes sense? Rock and roll? Badass. Cool. Ooh, I got a lot of thumbs up on that one. Pat myself on the back for that one. Put that one in the debrief notes, Jamie.
You're welcome.
Gold star today. Yeah, Wendy, you get a gold star too. All right, very good. All right. Let me actually go back to this. I'm going to do a little bit of a tangent, and the reason is because it's going to tie back to the exercise that we're going to go into after. Okay, so back to my PowerPoint here. I talked about the Path of Dialogue workshop, and let me fill you in on it because it'll be helpful for this next part. It is a quintessential workshop for those that are leaders and managers of people, or those that are in personal relationships, and they find themselves not advancing because you see yourself in that same old conversation or the same old rut, right? Betty Jo Waxman is leading this course, and she is far and away the expert when it comes to challenging conversations. In fact, there's a great story as to how my beautiful, amazing wife, Cassie, came to sign up for her first workshop because of the communication skills of Betty Jo. Not the insights that she had from the workshop, the communication skills that Betty Jo demonstrated with a very angry and upset client in a very public way, and how she just masterfully navigated it. Cassie said, I don't know what she did. I don't know how she did it, but I want that. She wasn't even thinking about what was the insight she had for herself. She just said, I want that. You can go talk to Cassie about what that was. Now, this Path of Dialogue is 4 sessions over Zoom, 1 to 4 p.m. on those dates. It is an exceptional course. Like I said, Betty Jo is leading it. Typically, it is $24.85. I'm going to do a 10% discount, which is about $250, which means that it's going to come down to $22.35. The way to do this, stick with me, folks. The way to do this is you have to email me and put in the subject line, I'm ready to jump in. That's all you got to do. I'm going to communicate. We'll talk. We'll figure it out. We'll put you in it. It's going to be great. That's what you got to do. As I have also offered in our past master classes, if that's too big of a jump of going into the Path of Dialogue, all you have to do is email me, just my toes, please. And you and I can have a free 30-minute coaching call, and we can further identify the beginnings of what the heck you do with this awareness, with these conversations, with this person, with these emotions that you're avoiding, and what to do with that. The awareness is the booby prize. Some people, it makes them move. Other people, they need something more. I want you to stop avoiding having these hard conversations, okay? Okay, now back to the main portion of the workshop, why we needed to go into that. From this insight that you have about your emotion that you are avoiding and where you learned that from, I want us all to come up with what is the agreement that you are going to make with yourself about that, about your learning agenda, about your commitment to your relationship with that emotion. Just seeing it is interesting. but interesting doesn't change your life. It doesn't change your relationship. Doesn't change your boss or your coworker or your client. You need to act on it. So I've given you some of these things. Obviously, I hope some of you are going to sign up for the Path of Dialogue. That's where you're really going to make a huge stride. Some of you want to just dip your toes in. Right on. Cool. Great. Send me an email saying you want to dip your toes in, please. What is your agreement to yourself as to what you are going to do with this? You have now the person or people that you're avoiding, the topic that you're avoiding, the emotions you will feel if you do it and you win. The current emotions that you have as you are avoiding the conversation, the emotions that you have as a blockage, and I've given you at least 2 options of what you can do about it. I'd like you to write on your paper in the chat, what is your commitment to yourself now that you have those 6? Yeah, those 6 things. What are you going to do with this now new level of awareness? Information gives you options, but it doesn't make the choice. What are you going to do with it? You know, hold your feet to the fire and move, do something, call me, email me. Address the matter more timely. Love it. Okay. There's a looseness in that, Andrea. More timely. There's a looseness. I want you to hold yourself to it. If that makes sense to you, good. Trust my instincts. And then what? Go with it, Lucy. Go with your instincts. Act on the instincts. If I can give you a suggestion, Lucy, act on the instinct. You may trust them and still sit and not move. Trust and then act on. Yes, good. The way to make changes, folks, is we have to act on our awareness. If we do not act on our awareness, cool, we get to see all the wonderful and horrible things we are doing for ourselves, and then nothing changes. What's your commitment? Peggy, you're going to call me for clarification? Awesome. Gold star for you. I'm a goal setter, so I'll put a time frame on each situation. Love it, Andrea. David, have a conversation about wanting to have a conversation. Yeah, David, right on. What do you guys got? You need to have a commitment. Insight, if all you do is come to these things just for the feeling of the insight, and then you don't change your life, I have not accomplished my goal, and I do not believe you are accomplishing your goal. We need to have a feeling of, I see something and I act. So what are you going to do? I think some of your best choices are have a conversation. Shoot an email to me. That's all you got to do. You got 2 choices right there. Shoot an email to me. But if you have other options, I'm game to hear. What are they? Christian, continue to find opportunities with management to safely be more exposed to uncomfortable situations, reviews and debriefs. Right on. Right on. Jamie, thank you very much. What are you going to do? What are you going to do, Wendy Price? What are you going to do, Wendy Claiborne? What are you going to do, Joan? Anybody want to publicly state what their commitment is? Anybody want to really go for it? Oh gosh, people.
I'll jump in since I'm on the phone.
Connie.
I really liked what you said about not wanting to kind of wallow in it, right? The ruminating part. And so it's making the commitment to have the conversations and to really observe when I'm ruminating, because sometimes you do it without noticing, right? So it's paying attention to the brain and what are the conversations I'm having, or what are the things that I'm ruminating about that I'm so used to sitting on.
Beautiful.
So it's observing more and then acting on it.
Beautiful. So Connie, then let's talk. And if anybody else has something similar where they want to catch when they're ruminating because they don't realize they are. So Connie, what are the tried and true tells, right? This is a poker tell that you do when you are ruminating. Are you a Netflix and chill? Are you a social media scroller and binger? Are you I start doing laundry even though I only got 6 items? What do you do?
I have conversations with that person in my head, or I have like the arguments or the fake conflict in my head, but then I never take it out of my head because I think, oh, it's not the right time, or I need to maybe, and then I talk myself out of it.
Raise of hands who has the whole conversation with the
Mhm.
person in their head. Great. Now, that's your tell.
Mhm.
What are you going to do when you catch yourself?
I'm going to have the conversation in person.
You're going to go
Even
for
if
it.
that, I'm going to go for it, even if that means role playing it out with somebody else, if I'm not sure about how I want to go, but it's just to schedule the time and do it.
Okay, so I love this. Let me extrapolate on this. You have to have the conversation with somebody other than yourself.
Mhm.
If it's with the person, that's a bullseye, 10 out of 10. If it's with mom, dad, brother, sister, coworker, coach, Mark, whatever it is,
Mhm.
fantastic. But you have to have the conversation outside of your head. Cool?
Yes.
Badass. Connie, gold star for you today. You can now go have that tough conversation you were driving to.
Yeah, right.
Nice job. Carol, you put your hand up. What do you got?
So I kind of, the ruminating I identify with, I, have feelings of anger and being blamed or guilt, I guess is what it is. And so my commitment is to explore the feelings of anger and to to look at how I might communicate it appropriately.
Okay. So doing some writing on that and kind of meditating on the anger and then how you would communicate it. Yeah. Is that what I hear? Here.
That would be one way to go about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I like that. Does that feel like that would move you forward?
Well, I'm hearing very much that you have to do something with it, and
Got
that's
him.
important.
Yeah.
The example that I was using during this class was something a conversation I just recently had.
Yeah.
And it took like, I don't know, about a week of calling back and forth with the person that I was trying to have it with. And the only reason I had it was someone said, "Oh, you ought to tell her about that." I had mentioned, I'm leaving this committee, and they said, "Oh, you ought to talk to her about why you're leaving,"
Yeah. Nice. Carol. Beautiful. Beautiful. Anybody else want to publicly state their commitment to themselves? Hey, folks, you got what you got.
Yeah, for me, Lyndon, I need to take action. I don't like reaching out to people for potential jobs, even though that's what I need to do to create more clients. I always rely on finding deals, putting them together, and then bringing people into the deals and being paid out of the deals.
Yep.
It's difficult for me, and I have a fear of rejection and a fear of not getting it, not
So then when you notice it, you will do what?
have the conversations, reach out to people that I need to reach out to.
Beautiful. Okay, folks, I'm going to end on that. This is now where your learning lies. You have an emotion that you have an unhealthy relationship, or one we could say is it keeps you in that state of avoidance. And by your own desire, you want something different and want something more. That's why you came on the masterclass, right? Your commitment is to yourself. You can throw it out here publicly, but ain't nobody going to call you out on it unless you ask for it. I am giving you an offering of having a coaching call with me, or if you're really ready to go and have this not be a major part in your life anymore, then the Path of Dialogue workshop is also the option. But the only thing to do that I can support you with from here forward is shoot me an email. Shoot me an email. You've got your commitment. You've got now a sense of awareness. Now it's a choice. Got it? It's on you. If you feel a little bit scared and a little bit empowered, I think you're in the right space. Okay, folks? Good job. Love you all. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday afternoon.